Welcome to the Assets and Infrastructure meeting. And first of all, I'd ask for apologies, and I have an apology from Malcolm McLean. Moved by Councillor Stoltz, second by Councillor Wilson. No other apologies, we're all here. All in favour? Against? Carried. And I'm going to ask any declarations of interest. You've all read the agendas. Anything there that you would? Right. Let's do the confirmation of the non-confidential minutes. So who'd like to? Moved by Councillor Burdett, second by Councillor Seymour. All in favour? Any comments or debate? Right. Questions?
Mr. Chairman, the solid waste on
including the action sheet, sorry.
8 of 79, a meeting with the Wairua District Council hinged on the meeting with the Waiaku Advisory Group, which has not happened. That was a month ago. I just wonder if there's any update or progress on that.
Yeah, through the chair, we have a meeting with the Waiaku Advisory Group next Wednesday.
When you guys talk through those, just sit back a bit. If you get up too close, they drum badly. Thank you. Okay, so is any other comments or including action sheet or matters arising? Right. Okay, move on to the governance work plan. Any? You're right, you don't want to talk about that anything?
Coming at the next.
Yep, place on. That's on now, isn't it? We're talking about that.
That's just a place on.
Yeah. Okay. Leave of absence, no leave of absence. Acknowledgements or tributes. Public petitions, none of those. Extraordinary business, anyone got some extraordinary business I'd like to raise? Notice of motion, none of those. Adjourned business, we're all good. Right, we'll go to page 14. Right. Moved by Councillor Seymour, second by Councillor Burdett. Comments or discussion?
Can I ask a question just on the financing bit? We say we have a budget. Are we just saying we can deep fund this 280?
So through the chair, yes, we would debt fund this.
Any other comment? Right, can I just ask for a little bit of background here on this? And it was like, it was some years ago, we had quite a surplus in the reserves for the water, and that was probably before your time, Dave. And the CX of the time was looking at ways of cutting rates, and we reduced the reserves contribution to the water, to the drinking water. Dwayne, you might remember that. I'm not sure. No, there's more. Yeah, so you were in different group then. And I'm wondering to now be left with, because if we had reserves in that were there to do this with, we could actually use that, could we? Or does it actually have to be specifically budgeted for?
So through the chair, there were in the past reserves, previous decisions made by different people at a different time chose to wind those reserves down, so they were used. We don't have any reserves at the moment to fund things like this. It'll be something that as we work through, so for example, in roading, you know that we're able to build back up that reserve this year because of the increased funding assistance rate, and council has chosen to put those into a reserve we're starting for roading. We'd like to start building reserves for water. It's something that we are looking at potentially for future, but at the moment, we don't have any reserves at the moment. They take a long time for us to wind those up.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that's the point I'm making, because water is probably on critical, it's up there with the very most critical asset we have, and in hindsight, it might have been that we would have been better off keeping, having that reserve fee set. So if we're aware of that, any other comment? I'll put it, all in favour? Against? Carried. Go to page 21. Busy bus extension of the contract. Would like to move that and second it, or moved by Councillor Stolt, second by Councillor Burdett. Councillor Wilson.
Oh, yeah, it's just the concern that it seems a really loose sort of project. A contract that we've had with, no oversight or indicators that we can judge how it goes and all the rest of it. In fact, there's virtually nothing. And I found it very difficult to read this, thinking, well, we haven't really done our job here, have we? So I'd just like to voice my displeasure that we've had a contract that hasn't got indicators in place that have had oversight for them, and here we are, we're extending the contract, which specifically in the contract said you had to have complied with certain requirements, and we can't judge those requirements. So, I mean, in the end, we'll go along with it, but what are we going to do from here on? Are we going to be a bit better at doing this?
Councillor Seymour can speak to it. Okay, Councillor Seymour will speak to it. And then we'll
Well,
ask.
yes, I've got the same concern, and
Yep.
I've at 24, which talks about full monitoring by council did not occur, and as a result, some attributes were not measured. But I mean, I wrote here for myself, how hard is it to randomly look at a bus and just to, once in 2 or 3 months, go and have a ride, which Councillor Stoltz and I have done. Vehicle appearance, internal and external, that's not hard to look at. Safety and security and vehicle conformance. I mean, you'd only have to go every 2 to 3 months to check out those things. I had a question specifically on 17. Subsidy for a passenger is $20.72 for one particular route. Is that per person, per trip? Or per day or per month? I mean, I hate to think it's per trip, but I think it is.
So through the chair, I haven't got Susan here, apologies, but I do think that is per person, per trip.
Yes, I figured it was. So I think that the ratepayers need to know that that's the cost, that it's what it costs. And then, it's consistent at 22. The measures were not used to assess contractor performance, but mainly used to meet the agency's quarterly reporting requirement. I mean, without needing to have an answer, I can't help but ask, is that where management failed to keep a monitoring finger on this contract?
Through the chair, one of the things that the staff have had a discussion is around how we're going to monitor these contracts going forward. And echo Councillor Wilson, I hear your sentiments around making sure that we are actually managing the performance as we said that we would in these contracts. So that's a performance issue that we need to make sure that we're managing as staff.
Councillor, anyone else want to comment? So, Councillor Stoltz.
When I read this, I know we're going to do better because we're getting the smart card system now where we would be able to electronically monitor some stuff. And I was also concerned that the guy might miss out on his $3,000 payment just because we didn't measure what we were supposed to measure. So I just wanted to raise that. But why did I put my hand up? I'll come back to it. I've lost my.
Alzheimer's.
I don't have Alzheimer's. I'll come back to it. I forgot now why.
So with respect to the concerns raised, is it wise to extend the same contract for another 3 years, or do you feel that possibly not stop the bus, keep it going, or give a smaller extension and ask for a more detailed look at it all. Councillor Stoll.
I remember now what I wanted to say. It's, when I read this report and I saw you talk about 2A has got 27 people less, and then 3B has got, there was so much detail in here that I can't really judge it because I'm not a user of the system. I didn't feel like after even reading this report, that we could judge it. I know it's a very important service in our community. I live around the hospital and I see the bus with people going all the time, so I know it means a lot. But I was concerned when what Councillor Seymour raised earlier about the bus route that we plan to drop is that one that's got the $20 subsidy. Are we now going to, because I have been involved before when we changed the route, I'm just concerned that we are now chopping that little bit, and soon we're adding to the other bit, which I support, going to the senior citizens homes and the healthcare centres. I do support that. I'm just concerned that with the information we receive, we as councillors can't make an informed decision of chopping some bits off the route and adding some others. But I am happy if you feel comfortable, because you've looked into this contract in way more detail, then I'm happy to support it. I'm just a little bit concerned that we are going to chop a little bit of this route and it's going to be a big headache for people that need the service.
Through the chair, bus routes over the years are always a contentious issue. Wherever we change a service, amend it, it never suits all of the people who want to be using those services. The recommendations from the team are looking at patronage, looking at how we can get where people have requested the buses to be, where they haven't been in the past, and where we know that there's growing demand by changing on some of those routes. It's something that we don't take lightly, and I'm confident the team have put good options up around the changes for the fare box recovery, which those of you that sit on the Regional Transport Committee know is a very lengthy discussion when we do discuss rates and how we do our fare box recovery process. That is done as part of the Regional Transport Committee as well.
Councillor Foster.
On page 28, number 50, wireless contract extension will be a one-off with no renewal option. What does that mean? Does it mean, what it says it means, no renewal option? Or does it go up to open tender again after 3 years?
So through the chair, it means that this is the last extension as right, that the next one will be full open market. So we'll put it to tender for this next time.
Right.
Can I just ask one question about proposed extension, and if I'm imagining without naming, into the 2 new retirement villages? Have we had someone go up there and really make sure that they're going to be used? Because both of those villages have their own transport and they take their residents to things and come into town and go to the supermarket. So are we sure that it is that they do want it?
So through the chair, my understanding is that that's been requests for people wanting to visit people at the villages, so having access from public transport to go on people who are living it.
So rather go to the village than for visits. Thank you.
Or any other?
I'll move.
I think it's been moved and
It's
seconded.
been moved.
Yep.
So let's put it, but we need to be aware, like they're talking about a decline of 40% in the last 6 years, and to keep the same contract does seem a bit of a concern, you'd have to wonder.
But
do
if
we-
you, oh, sorry.
And sometimes it's almost better to up it to try and get more people than down it to, and so anyhow,
Mr. Chairman, would it be helpful if we added further clause that absolutely require new consideration 6 months before the end of the next contract? Because this one will fall over quite soon.
yes.
Whereas if we start the investigation 6 months out, 2022, then there's much better opportunity to get new tenders, more information, potentially strike the right balance. And I mean, I know some of us thought those buses were partly big, even though they're smaller than the ones we had before, but there's an issue of access onto buses. If they're not
Big enough.
So with the mover and seconder, I'd like to add that in, that we have a,
Review 6
Uh,
months, or, yeah.
okay.
reviews.
Okay, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 34.
I'll move that.
Moved by councillor Stolt. Second by councillor Seymour. Any? Yep.
Just what's the first line item there, asset management maturity? What does that mean?
So through the chair, that's a report around how our asset management is going to be done going forward. So part of it is looking at what we know about our maturity of knowledge about the assets. It's not necessarily the age of the assets themselves. It's our maturity as the owner around the level of information and the data that we have to inform decision making about those assets. So if you remember at the previous meeting, we were talking about what componentisation was. So where we were breaking down some of our big assets to talk about the wastewater treatment plant, for example, has a 30-year lifespan on it. However, the pumps that inside it only last for 5. So it's actually having a better knowledge about the fact that while we need to be depreciating that pump faster than over 30 years, it's got to be done over 5 because its shelf life's only 5. That's just an example of the components. So it's around, as Neville and Simon in particular in the water space are working through the assets a lot better, and have a better understanding, we'll be bringing things back for your consideration around how we depreciate, how we renew those assets. And I suppose it's part of the point that the Finance and Audit Councillor were making this morning around how do we know the effect of those decisions on the assets. So it's having some better conversations as we understand those assets in more detail going forward, now that we have staff dedicated to understanding those assets better.
Thank you.
Councillor Biddy.
I have 3 questions. Governance work, and the other one, the first one, with David, I thought we could just trade the sale of the dollars. You know, we and I both know they are being currently paid for by those assisting with the loan, the protection of the Ruatoria, and the place for them is in the Rua. Why protecting the township, so how can we even consider the sale at this point in time?
Through the chair, the referral around those dollars is in Headley's yard in Ruatoria. There's $411 sitting in the yard. NZTA have approached us about the potential purchase of those dollars that we have there. They need around 600 for a job that they have further down the Waipu River. They've asked, and Mr. Headley has asked, as a starter, could they use the 400 that we have as part of that project to then look at manufacturing the other 200. So the sale would be, and then replacing the ones that are taken with further to be manufactured by Mr. Headley. So what we've asked is, what we've flagged is a report would come back to council to discuss if that goes ahead with NZTA and those dollars are purchased by them, what to do with the proceeds of that, and when we order more dollars, how many we should order, and the money that comes from the sale be put into reserve for Waipu works. As the Waipu catchment plan is further developed, it's around using that money for either what type of river protection as specified by that catchment plan going forward, rather than having our 400 sitting in the yard. When they have to make 600, they may as well use ours to stop taking up the space, and then we decide what to do with that going forward.
I understand perfectly, it's not true, Mr. Chairman, but isn't, and I understand where these things are supposed to be going, the sale proceeds, but there's a process to go through currently, and this has been ongoing for 4 or 5 years now, I suppose. But the issue is, there's no money in the long-term plan for restoration of the Waipu. Finally, there's some action on the 16th of this month. There will be a JMA meeting between the Runanganui Council, and I would say those dollars would be a strong point of feature in terms of restoration work in the Waipu. So, yeah, I'm in a bit of a loss to understand. I thought we'd committed ourselves to putting these things into the river. Part of that protection scheme.
So through the chair, the dollars that were purchased from Mr. Headley use the funds that the Ruatoria Township pay as part of the targeted rate, and is subsidised also by the general rate payers. However, it doesn't include the cost of putting those in. We're still in deficit for the purchase of the dollars up front, there's no funds available to put them physically in the river. And that's the issue that we want to bring back to the council table, is to say, if we're able to generate funds as part of the sale of the $400, what do you want us to do with that, council? Do we pay the debt back that's currently outstanding and maybe buy half as many dollars to then be able to put them in the river rather than having them sitting on the side of the river? So we're going to bring back options to say, if we sell the 400, we can potentially sell them for the price to put X amount back into the river and pay for their production at the same time, rather than having the same amount sitting on the side. And there's a lot of detail to go through with NZTA, and we need to formulate exactly what the amounts are, how many can be put in, and is that what the community wants to do? This paper's signalling later on in the year we'll have those answers and be able to bring back what the sale will be able to buy and the future things, should that sale with NZTA still go through.
So basically what you're saying, this doesn't stop the prevention of actually making more dollars. If your meeting comes up and says that you're wanting those dollars to put in the river. And
I'm entirely relying on David's integrity on this one, because this has been an ongoing argument for a long time.
So,
Like you're failing in my duty.
Right.
I didn't chase this up.
Points well made, and you're right. And so we've been given an undertaking here that any income used, if there is, it might be the other way around. It might be that your meeting decides that you need them before NZTA, and we have to end up building new ones for NZTA, so it's not an issue. So would that be a fair, so okay, you happy with that?
Yes, now.
Right. There was a couple-
Variations for regional and transport plan for 2018, 2021. What's happening there, David?
So through the chair, the regional, the report coming for those is around, with the provincial growth funding, we have got the duplicate funding from PGF that pays for projects that we had in our regional land transport plan and in our long-term plan. So rather than using the double up, we're saying let's use the provincial growth funding that will pay for the local share on those roads, which does require an amendment to the LTP. Because in our RLTP, because the RLTP has it double counted there effectively. So it's just to say we now have the local share for this, it's paid for by something else. So that's what we're working through.
Last question. Paper roads policy. What does that actually mean?
So through the chair, we have a number of paper roads all across the district. This is looking at some of the ones where we are we have been approached by some landowners and some big farming operations to either remove those or to hand them over to the landowners going forward. So it's looking to tidy up where it's stopping development on some of those farms, or where it's actually becoming something that around walking access and those kind of things. So it's something we're just looking to tidy up with our policy that we have at the moment. If the committee remembers back, it's also linked with where we end roads effectively, where it's the last landowner, the road stops, sometimes they continue, sometimes public keep access, and there's a number of issues for farmers. So trying to keep people out of blocks and those kind of things. So we just want to develop up a proper policy so that everybody knows where they stand on those roads going forward.
Right. Okay, been moved and seconded. Any other questions? I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against, carried. Then we're going to waste recycling changes update.
Paper, because it's simply important and has to happen. But I have one question about the education and communication. It's on the front page of 38 of 79. After the changes come into effect from 1 June, our comms will focus on practical ways households can minimise the amount of waste they generate. You know, why couldn't we start that now so that people are beginning to get in their head that there's a new way of functioning?
Welcome to the meeting, guys. Through the chair. Our long-term plan in regards to this month and then moving forward is incremental approach. So looking to start things slowly and then ramp things up probably from the last 10 days of May towards the 1st of June. So part of our our structure throughout May is starting to talk about making those changes as you referred to.
Thank you for that explanation.
Okay, councillor Stolt, councillor Dunn.
I'm very heartened when I read this because the last time we spoke about this and we talked about the numbers on the plastic and what we were going to do about that, one of the things I raised was how we're going to educate the public better, because it's confusing for people to have different types of plastic and this I can recycle, but this I can't recycle. And in the end, people don't recycle because it is not made clear for them. So I'm very heartened when I read this, that there's an active education program behind all of this and that there will be stickers on the bins to remind people, but also trying, and there's the stickers coming now. I think the approach you are taking is very, very proactive, but then also in the end of the day, it is going to be practical and people will know what to do and they'll be on board. So thank you for listening to us last time we raised these concerns.
Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, my question's more on where to from here. We're going to see an increase in rubbish being collected, which is going to increase costs. And how far out are we looking in terms of that? So this is the collection and then the transport out the region. We're going to see an increase in rates possibly for rubbish collection. And how far down the track are we looking? Or are we just going to surprise the public when their rates go up with rubbish collection?
Through the chair, we've looked at this with our contractor, and the costs for the collections won't increase in terms of the contract. The costs in terms of the people who are buying the 3s to 7s will obviously increase the bag volumes that will go out. So it will be a cost impact on those of the public that are using those plastics. I suppose we haven't forecast what the effect will be in the next few years to the end of the contract, 2022. So we couldn't comment on that.
Supplementary, if we're now going to be producing more solid waste as a result of this plastics not going to recycling, and we're going to see a larger volume of waste being transported out of the district, so we're going to see a shift in cost. How proactive are we being in that to the public and to the ratepayers, because they should be expecting a change in this area in terms of the cost? And are we going to think about communicating that as we're going through this process? Or are we going to keep it separate?
As there's no forecast available, we're going to have to probably look into that and come back to you on it. Okay.
Right, any other questions? No, it's been moved and councillor Wilson can second it since he's been demoted. And councillor Stoltz has been shoved off. So that's Seymour and Wilson. So all in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, page 43. Drinking water update. Good afternoon, how are you?
Thank you.
That's all right, welcome. Okay, moved by councillor Dunn and councillor Foster. Did you want to second it or did you have something to say? Seconded by councillor Foster. Okay, any conversation? Would you like to raise any issues or points with regard to?
Not particularly. I just wanted to take the opportunity to, one, say hello to you as a committee I haven't fronted before. And just to say that, you know, there's a lot going on in the drinking water world in New Zealand, and that in-house here too, we're doing a lot of work about our water supplies and, you know, being in a position to find benefit and change and improvement and to meet what we know is legislative demand coming forward. So it was really an opportunity just to bring forward a few pertinent things in front of the committee at the moment, and, you know, just also to talk with you a bit more. You know, we want to have a lot more discussion around water supplies going forward. You will see change coming directed through government, and, you know, that we as a team are also very keen to engage in that process as well.
Okay, any questions or comments?
I've got no chance.
Don't even think about it. Right, okay, so if there's no other comments or questions or debate, I'll put it all in favour. Against, carried. And now we've got a road safety update. Sorry, what's that? Hi, how are you? Welcome to the committee this afternoon. This Di. And you want to speak to the paper a bit, or is there any points you'd like to sort of point out, or shall we just take it as?
Firstly, I just wanted to take the opportunity to basically give you a snapshot of what the Road Safety Action Planning Group is doing. As you know, there's a lot happening on our network, and we're doing as much as we can possible to ensure that everyone using our roads are safe. We've got a long, long way to go. Yes, we know that, but in terms of education, raising awareness and working with the community, it's going really well for our group.
Right,
Can I ask a couple of
Councillor
questions?
Seymour.
Because I appreciate the road safety group is doing a really great job. I mean, there have been 2 fatal accidents since the 15 that are reported in here on the East Coast Road last week. So that's, you know, the fatal accidents on our roads are getting worse. That's not necessarily something that you can control, but it's something we need to make sure we raise with the NZTA at every absolute opportunity. I thought that the work that you're doing with recidivist drink drivers is really great. And so my question is, what potential, because I know it's directly related to funding, is there to start working with those individuals after their second conviction? Because at the end of the day, everyone that we can help to overcome their habit of drink driving is a life we save, potentially.
Now, that's a good question.
Where do you
and
get the funding from, and what can we do maybe to help you get more so that those people can be referred after their second incident?
So funding comes from NZTA and GDC. In terms of obtaining the people earlier, that's something that we have been working on. So now police are referring them straight over instead of coming through probations. So at the minute, we've got 6 referrals directly from police for their second offence.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so it's starting to happen.
Well done.
Yeah,
Thank you very
it was a
much.
pilot for the first year, and then we're just expanding as we go. We also decided to increase the number of programs as well, because we were getting enough people that we could possibly have one every month if we chose to, if funding was available for it.
Excellent.
Any Councillor Burdett?
I just want to ask, aside from giving us the funding, what role does Transport Agency play in safety on the highways? Do they actively participate in getting out, putting safety programs in place?
So through the chair, it's probably best that I answer that. So the New Zealand Transport Agency is responsible for safety on the highway. They have a program that they have around education, and they also have the programs that they work around looking at crash spots and making those safe where possible. The Regional Transport Committee was advised at the last meeting that we have the safety inspector looking at the speeds on State Highway 2 and 35 at the moment and looking to see how we can make those safe. We also have an audit going of the high crash areas to make sure that we have the appropriate controls in place there. So the New Zealand Transport Agency has a huge role to play in safety on this. Well, they have the role to play in safety in our district. but we also work closely with them around the interventions that we're doing on the local road as well. We share the same safety engineer.
Do you take this program up the coast?
Yes, we are looking to do that in the next financial year.
Thank you, councillor Beattie. Councillor Stoltz and then councillor Foster.
Di or Dave, I was interested in, I couldn't open it up big enough, the Gisborne Girls High School work planned for April, June, and I thought if you could just, I drive there, past there quite a few times a day, so I'm planning not to go there in April and June. But I was just wondering if you can, I couldn't open up that picture big enough. Can you tell me what you plan to do in that stretch of the road?
So what we're looking to do is to widen the road to Stanley Road. Yes, not the main road. Stanley Road, so that we can have safe parking and more parking available.
Good. Thank you.
Councillor Foster.
Yeah, great reading and yeah, congratulations on good, safety precautions and everything. But my question is there any program to identify phone use in vehicles and the cause it is creating in accidents and so forth?
Currently, there is an operation that the police run, and we support that operation. It's a spotters operation, so police are standing on the side of the road basically and not in uniform, and there's other people down the road ready to have a talk to them, educate them, and maybe give them a ticket. So that's the only program
Is that,
at the minute.
is the use of phones in cars widespread?
Yes.
Can I, yes, I'd like to just follow up on that. You know, like I've been driving now for 45 years, probably, and up until a year ago or 2 years ago, I hadn't had any real incidences with, I've never had one with myself, but I've never really had any other incidences with other people. And then you see the statistics suddenly going up. It's on TV, and there's some real horror tragedies out there. You know, there really are. And it's last week over at Taupo Way, it was just an absolute horror. And but it's actually coincided with two near misses with myself, where people have, where I could have, it's just as easily been involved in a 200-kilometre hour head-on smash, had I not been more observant and taken evasive action. And I'm wondering, is there a need to look at the statistics of, or the coroners, or in the police reports, for us to get a bit of understanding what's going on? Because if it is phones, if it is trucks, if it is drugs, if it is drink, you know, then we need to know that, to know where to focus our efforts, and otherwise, you know, here we are out there building barriers. And in actual fact, in the two incidences where I've been involved in, if had there been a barrier on the side of the road, it would have been a serious smash, because I would have had nowhere to evade it. And so I'm wondering, is there a document with those stats that we can see, so that we can actually aim our safety work to target it more accurately? Because here we are, we've got the public purse, we're spending their money, and I question whether barriers are what's needed.
Through the chair, the recent barriers that have been installed on the state highway were part of the NZTA Safe Roads Initiative, and we've had a fair bit of work and discussion, I'd say, fair to say, Dave, with NZTA around the location of some of them so far to date. So they're an initiative where barriers are the right thing. They are not the silver bullet. If you drive on any motorway or any highway, they are definitely something that need to be used for the right reasons in the right places, but they're not the thing that keep people safe. What keeps people safe is driving to the conditions and actually being aware of what they're doing.
No, I'm sorry. It was, yeah.
I jumped.
Yeah, no, I was doing just under 100, and the other one was doing just on 106. But it would have been a total tragedy, and ended up taking out my boat And I was only doing 90. I was only doing 90, remember, because I had a boat trailer on the back. And missed my ute by millimetres, and I was off from the drain and took out my trailer. Anyhow, so this hasn't been moved. Moved by councillor Salt, second by councillor Burdett. Is there any other comments or questions? Right, thank you very much. All in favour? Against? Carried. Roading maintenance contracts.
We take the orders ready.
Okay, if you'd like to, I'll move it. Seconded by councillor Burdett. And any comments or questions? Would you like to? There's nothing you'd like to speak to about it. There's nothing in particular.
No, I just think the timeframe might be just slightly extended, because I think we were just talking about it yesterday. We might need to come back to talk to the committee about what you're going to buy within that next 2 years with the money.
Yep.
I don't think it'll be a big discussion, but we thought maybe before we sign the contracts,
yep,
you know.
So through the chair, Dave's referring to bringing back the performance measures that we're going to be using with Downer. So the response times, the things that we want to workshop with the committee, but then also talking about the levels of service on the road so that you're aware what we're buying before we buy it. So this will be around what the stretches of road will look like, what minimum maintenance will look like, what it will look like when it actually needs a repair, so that you'll be aware and signing off those before we sign the contract for that coming through. It's taken us time to work through the document for the local roads because it is a very big document, and Dave and the team have been developing, so we'll bring that back to the next meeting to be able to sign that over. We're also talking about bringing Downer here as well to present, to show you what the levels of service and the rates and what it is that we're buying in the 2 years that we have left on that contract before it goes to tender again.
I think that's absolutely necessary with what we've been through with our roads in the last few years, and the lack of understanding from the governance side or of the detail of the previous contracts. I think we're going to want to be pretty certain we know where we're going this time. So thank you for that. Yeah, Councillor Burdett.
Mr. Chairman, is this for our local roads, Dave? You're talking? Yes. Marvellous. Get back to reality.
Okay, so that's any other comments? Been moved and seconded, so all in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. Dave. Afternoon, Neville. Welcome to the meeting. It's a drain-wise report. Would you like to speak to it, or?
I'll take it as three, but I'd like to come out just one correction. Under discussion and options, bullet point 5, Reedy Road, stormwater.
The second page, where in bullet point 5?
7. Actually, won't be.
Oh, yeah.
We previously reported to the commission the reasons for issues of private property and requirement for redesign of some of that. Other than that, happy to take questions. It's quite an extensive report. A lot happening in the drainwater space, drainwise space now. As you can see, we've actually got quite a bit of momentum now on the way, and I think that's the watershed has been the allocation of the $540,000 for on-property stormwater drainage. That's allowed us to have a positive impact out there, and we're now building off that positivity with regards to the education programs and other initiatives.
Councillor Biddy.
Mr. Chairman, we can have a meeting with your new advisory group.
Yes.
So that you can bring us up to speed.
Yep, that's definitely the aim.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, look, the issue with disconnecting downpipes into the gully traps, we've known about that for a long time, eh? Are you talking about ones that have already been visited before and you're going back again, because you must know by now who have got the downpipes going into the gully traps, unless new people have been rejigging their system after you've already been.
Through the chair, yes, you're quite right. A number of these are reoffenders. But I think the step changes we've talked about in the previous meetings is around permanent fixes now, rather than just asking them to remove it. We're now requiring to connect to an outlet, an approved outlet. So the need for redirecting them back in no longer exists. So part of that issue is around now permanent solutions.
Okay,
And that's probably been a step change.
Mr. Chairman, if they reoffend, you serve abatement notices and get stuck into them?
That's the purpose of the enforcement report that we're looking to come through, is in terms of how we conduct ourselves in that space. But the answer is yes, we do. We use the Local Government Act to enforce it. So we issue it with some legislation behind it that validates why we're doing it. But we will be asking this committee for guidance around policy and enforcement.
Right, Councillor Stoltz.
Touch base on is the white paper we discussed a while back. Was it the blue paper? Was it the white paper? White paper. What has happened to that? Well, because that is where we discussed how we're going to split, what subsidies there will be. Are we considering doing some public work? What has flowed out, or is this flow on from the white paper?
The white paper is actually a paper due in this report that's coming to you in June with regards to enforcement and that will cover the issues of hardship and the options we have around at what rate we impose ourselves on the household
Then
to
just,
actually comply.
supplementary to that, when we spoke in the white paper, I can barely remember I can't remember when we did it. Was it 6 months ago, 8 months ago? Quite some time ago, 2 years ago, I can't remember.
Alzheimer's.
But, not good. Did we then give you some clear policy steer of what we thought would be viable options to do some publicly funded work on private properties and the percentages and how, were there some clear indications given to you then to incorporate into the policy?
So through the chair, a few months ago, when we had that conversation, we asked for a steer from the committee around what types of considerations we should take going forward for properties that were going to either fail to comply. So as you're aware, in the long-term plan, we have 540,000 per year for public drains on private property. This is for the remaining. So if you remember back to the long-term plan, there's around $13 million worth of work outstanding on the in-between on private properties. It's how we get that remaining half of it that's sitting out there that we need to do. So we're going to come back to you with the options that we canvassed with you around affordability. So what mechanisms are available to assist people to pay? So you gave us directions around things like, could they be put on people's rates to be able to be paid off over time when we take the debt? Interest-free. We were looking at interest-free loans. We were looking at a whole range of different options. So we're going to bring those back to you for further consideration when that paper comes back in June.
Councillor Foster. Yeah, just one question. I mean, with all the work that's been done so far, and we have had quite a lot of rain over the last month or so, are you noticing the level of time of, or the flows into the wastewater system is less and the on-property flooding is decreased?
Through the chair, we probably actually haven't had the really high intensity stuff. We've actually had probably a reasonable amount of rain, but not really the high intensity.
Watch the space.
We hope we can dodge another year at least.
Yeah, no, you're right. We've had enough to make mud and bog, but the creeks still aren't flowing. So,
Councillor Dunn.
Yes, I'm pleased to hear that the dialogue I've heard today, because my first question was going to be taking the pipes out of the gully traps doesn't solve anything. The problem is they need a stormwater pipe to get it into the network. So I'm pleased to hear that we're going to do that. And I'm excited to hear about this infrastructure improvements on private property strategy, because that's heading in the right direction. So I look forward to getting that paper.
Okay, any other questions?
Through the chair, maybe just one further comment. We are on track for the $540,000 spend for this year. A large portion of it will actually be next year's design. So it's taken a lot of effort to get property entry because we are going on private property. So when you're dealing with multiple property owners, you have to get consent for them. And also how do we manage those pipes on in terms of the legal status. So that's taken a lot longer than we anticipated, but we are ahead of the game for next year. So we would anticipate much quicker rollout next year.
Oh, great. It's surprising. It's such a big project, but it's sort of tucked away in people's backyards and you don't see it happening. But it's nice to know, as you said, there's actually got some momentum now. It's happening, so that's great. Thanks. Okay. I need a mover and a second. Councillor Wilson and Councillor Dunn. Right, any other comments? All in favour? Aye. Against? Done and dusted, thank you very much. Oh, and by the way, folks, Neil, I understand this is probably your last time that you're going to be here with us at Assets and Infrastructure. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for all what you've done for us and your patience and your perseverance and your expertise. So thank you very much and wish you well in your future endeavours. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Opposed? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.